She stopped texting back as fast. She started taking longer to reply, gave you shorter answers, and you felt that pit in your stomach, the one that makes you want to text again just to check if everything's okay. Stop. Right there. That instinct you just felt, that's the exact instinct that's been pushing every high-value woman you've ever wanted further away. Here's something almost nobody tells men. Women don't fall for the guy who chases hardest. They fall for the guy who doesn't need to. Not because he doesn't care, because he respects himself too much to beg for attention with his thumbs at 11 at night. So if you've ever double texted, apologized for having plans, or shrunk yourself down just to keep the peace, I need you to ask yourself one brutal question before we go any further. Are you attracting her, or are you just available to her? Because those are not the same thing. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which one you've been. If that hit close to home, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. You're a man who was never taught the actual mechanics of attraction, because nobody sits boys down and explains this stuff. We get told to be nice, to communicate, to just be yourself. And somewhere in that advice, an entire piece of the puzzle went missing. That piece is boundaries. Not the version of boundaries that gets thrown around in therapy speak, watered down into a soft skill you politely mention on a first date. I'm talking about boundaries as a psychological signal, a signal that tells a woman's nervous system before she's even consciously aware of it that you are a man who values himself. And here's the part that changes everything once you actually understand it. Attraction isn't built through effort. It's built through self-respect that other people can feel. That's not a theory I'm handing you to make you feel better. It's rooted in how female attraction actually functions at a psychological level, something we're going to unpack in real detail in a few minutes, because once you see it, you will never approach dating the same way again. In this video, I'm giving you 6 specific boundaries. Not vague concepts, actual, usable lines you draw in your life, your time, your communication, and your standards. Each one is going to do double duty. It's going to make you a healthier, more emotionally mature man, and as a direct side effect, it's going to make you significantly more attractive to the kind of woman who actually deserves your time. High-value women, the ones with options, the ones who aren't chasing anyone, they aren't drawn to men who accommodate them. They're drawn to men who stand somewhere solid enough that they have to walk toward it. Here's my promise to you. If you actually apply what's in this video, not just watch it and nod, you will stop feeling like you're auditioning for a woman's attention. You'll stop that sick feeling of waiting for a text. You'll start operating from a place where your worth doesn't fluctuate based on her mood, her response time, or whether she liked your last Instagram story. Now, before we get into the 6 boundaries, I need to plant 2 things in your mind because they're going to matter later, and I want you thinking about them the whole way through. First, there is one specific boundary, the 4th one, that almost every man violates without even realizing it, and it single-handedly destroys attraction faster than anything else on this list. I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like and exactly how to catch yourself doing it. Second, there's a psychological reason women test boundaries before they respect them, a reason rooted in something called an investment filter. And once you understand what that filter is actually measuring, you'll never take her testing personally again. You'll see it for what it really is. Hold on to those. We're coming back to both. But first, you need to understand the truth that most men never figure out, the reason boundaries work on a level far deeper than logic. Let's get into it. Most men believe attraction is built through giving. Give compliments, give attention, give your time, your energy, your best self over and over, hoping that eventually it adds up to enough that she chooses you. That belief is not just wrong, it's the exact mechanism working against you. Here's the truth nobody explains. Attraction isn't a reward for generosity. It's a response to demonstrated value. And value isn't demonstrated by what you give away freely. It's demonstrated by what you protect. Think about anything humans consider valuable: gold, time, a seat at an exclusive table. What makes it valuable isn't just usefulness, it's scarcity, and the fact that access to it is guarded. Something freely available with no limits and no friction gets processed by the brain as common, ordinary, low status. This isn't cynicism, it's how human perception evaluates worth, and it applies whether we like it or not. Now here's where it gets specific to you. When you have no boundaries, when you're available anytime she texts, agreeable to any plan, quick to apologize even when you did nothing wrong, you are unconsciously broadcasting a signal. And that signal says, my time has no protected value. My standards bend under enough pressure. My attention is not something you have to earn. A woman's brain picks up on that signal long before her conscious mind does. This connects to something in psychology called an approach avoidance conflict. Humans are wired to want things that show some resistance and to lose interest in things that offer zero resistance at all. It's the same reason a locked door pulls your curiosity more than an open one. It's not manipulation, it's baked into how attention and desire actually work. Let me give you a real scenario because this is where it clicks for most men. Picture a guy, we'll call him Josh. Josh meets a woman, let's call her Mia, and things go well on the first date. Josh really likes her. So over the next week, Josh texts first every single time. He agrees to every plan she proposes, even when it means canceling something he had going on. When she takes hours to reply, he tells himself she's just busy, and he replies instantly the second she does. When she cancels a date last minute, he tells her it's totally fine, no worries at all. From Josh's perspective, he's being a good guy. Considerate, easygoing, low drama. From Mia's nervous system, something very different is happening. She's registering moment by moment that Josh has no floor. There is no version of his behavior that shifts based on how she treats him, and whether Mia could articulate it or not, her interest starts quietly draining away. Not because Josh did anything dramatic wrong, but because he demonstrated again and again that he has nothing he's protecting. This is where cognitive dissonance comes in, and it's important you understand this part. Mia doesn't consciously think I'm losing attraction because he has no boundaries. That would require her to sit down and analyze her own psychology in real time, which almost nobody does. Instead, she just starts to feel less pulled toward him, and her mind manufactures a reason that feels true. He's too nice. There's no spark. He's just not for me. The real cause and the story she tells herself are two completely different things. Here's the piece that will change how you see every future interaction. This isn't about Mia being shallow, and it's not about Josh being weak as a person. It's a mismatch between what Josh is doing and what human attraction actually responds to. Josh was optimizing for being liked in the moment. He should have been optimizing for being respected over time. And that's the entire shift we're making in this video. Not from nice to cruel, not from generous to selfish, from unprotected to protected, from a man whose behavior bends around her mood to a man whose behavior stays consistent and lets her rise to meet it or not. Now you understand why boundaries work. The real question is what they actually look like in practice, and because have boundaries is useless advice without the specifics. That's what we're building next. Here are the 6 boundaries. Not theory anymore, actions. Boundary 1, protect your response time. You do not need to reply the second a text comes in. You reply when it's convenient for you, within a reasonable window, not on command. The psychology here is simple. Instant replies, every single time. Signal that she is your top priority above everything else in your life, and nothing scarce ever feels that way. The common mistake men make is overcorrecting into games, deliberately waiting hours to seem cool. Don't perform indifference. Just live your actual life and reply when you naturally get to it. The difference between strategy and authenticity is obvious to a woman even if she can't name why. Boundary 2. Never cancel your own plans to accommodate a last-minute change from her. If you have something scheduled and she suggests moving things around at the last minute, you don't drop everything. You say honestly that you're already committed and you offer another time that works. The psychology, this demonstrates your life has structure and momentum independent of her, which is one of the single most attractive traits a man can display because it proves you're not orbiting her. The mistake men make here is framing it apologetically, like they're disappointing her by having a life. State it plainly, with zero guilt in your voice. Boundary 3. Say no to plans, requests, or behavior that don't sit right with you without over-explaining. A short, calm, "that doesn't work for me," is a complete sentence. You don't owe a paragraph justifying it. The psychology behind this is about certainty. Over-explaining signals that you need her approval of your reasoning, which quietly hands her the authority to judge whether your no is valid. The common mistake is dressing up a no as a maybe out of fear of seeming difficult, which trains her to push past your limits because you've shown her they move. Boundary 4. And this is the one I told you we'd come back to, the one almost every man violates without noticing. Stop seeking reassurance through your actions. This shows up as double texting after no reply, asking, "Are we okay?" after a normal disagreement, or fishing for compliments about how you look or how the date went. Every one of these is you outsourcing your sense of security to her response. The psychology is direct. Neediness isn't a feeling, it's a behavior, and it's the single fastest attraction killer that exists because it signals your emotional state is dependent on her validation. The fix isn't suppressing the feeling, it's refusing to act on it. Feel the urge to double text, don't send it. That gap between impulse and action is where your self-respect actually gets built. Boundary 5. Maintain your standards even when you're interested. This means not lowering your expectations around how you're treated just because attraction is high. If she's consistently vague about plans, inconsistent with communication, or disrespectful in small ways, you don't quietly absorb it because you like her. You address it directly, once, calmly, and you watch what she does with that information. The psychology, high-value women are, ironically, testing to see if your standards survive contact with their interest, because a man whose standards evaporate the moment a woman is attractive is a man whose standards were never real. The mistake most men make is believing that raising a concern will ruin the vibe. In reality, it's often the first moment she starts taking you seriously. Boundary 6. Keep a life outside of her that you don't sacrifice. Your friendships, your training, your goals, your solo time, none of that gets canceled because a new relationship started. The psychology is layered here. It prevents the resentment that builds when someone loses themselves in a relationship, and it keeps you interesting because a man with his own gravitational pull is inherently more magnetic than a man who's fully absorbed into hers. The common mistake is treating a new relationship like a full-time replacement for your old life, which feels flattering to her for about 2 weeks, and then starts to feel suffocating because now she's responsible for being your entire world. Here's what ties all 6 together. None of these are about controlling her. You cannot control whether she texts back, whether she's interested, whether it works out. What you can control is whether you remain a man worth being interested in. And that's what every one of these boundaries is actually protecting. I know what's actually happening in your head right now because I've talked to enough men to know the pattern. You're not sitting there calmly absorbing this like a lecture. You're replaying a specific conversation, a specific unanswered text, a specific moment where you already know you crossed one of these 6 lines, and some part of you is quietly panicking that it's too late. It's not too late. But I need you to hear something important about the process you're starting. Building real boundaries is not a script you deliver once and then everything shifts. It's a discipline. And like every discipline, it's going to feel unnatural before it feels like strength. The first time you don't send the second text, you will feel physically uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's the exact sensation of an old, needy pattern losing its grip on you. Here's the reframe I want you to carry out of this video because it will save you more anxious 3 a.m. moments than anything else I could say. The silence you're sitting in when you don't reach out isn't rejection. It's not proof she doesn't care. It's simply space. Space for her to show you through her own actions what she actually wants. Most men fill that space with anxious behavior because silence feels unbearable. But silence isn't your enemy. Silence is where you find out what's real. Ask yourself something honestly. If a woman only stays interested when you're chasing, accommodating, and available on demand, what exactly do you think happens 6 months into a relationship with her, once the performance stops and you're finally being yourself? You already know the answer. That's not a woman losing interest in you. That's a woman who was never actually interested in the real you to begin with. That's why this isn't about tricking anyone into liking you. It's a filter. When you hold these boundaries, some women will drift, and that's not a loss. That's information delivered early before you invested months into someone who was only ever attracted to your compliance. And the women who lean in when you hold your ground, those are the ones capable of real respect. Those are the ones worth building something with. I want you to understand what you're actually building here, because it's bigger than any one woman, any one text thread, any one outcome. Every time you don't send the anxious message, you're not just protecting a relationship, you're becoming a man who doesn't need external validation to feel steady. That version of you is going to walk into every room differently, not louder, not more aggressive, just settled. And settled is, without exception, more attractive than anything you could ever say or do to try to prove your worth. So the next time your hands hover over the keyboard, about to send that second text, pause. Ask yourself if you're about to act from value or from fear. That single pause, repeated enough times, is what actually separates the men who transform their entire dating life from the men who watch videos like this one and change nothing. You don't need her to text back tonight to know your worth. You already have it. You've just been handing it away, one anxious message at a time. Stop handing it away. If this hits something real in you, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, because I'm building out a full series on exactly this kind of male psychology and self-respect, and you don't want to miss where we go next. And drop a comment right now telling me which of these 6 boundaries you're going to start with this week. I actually read them, and I want to know which one hit hardest for you. I'll see you in the next one.